Should you invest your time heavily into leg locks, or should you concentrate on other things if you do MMA? Coming up. My new online student, Eric Metzger from Cincinnati, Ohio, asked me if he should invest heavily into a leg lock game, or he should concentrate on other things like ground and pound and other MMA areas as well. So there is a nuanced answer to this, and there's a short and a long answer. I'll give you the short one. You should have leg lock basics, and not just because I have leg lock basics and never delved into like John Danaher system or some of these other guys that are doing it right now. No, I'll come to that later. I think that MMA is so complex that you need to concentrate on the things that will bring you the biggest bang for the buck. When it comes to MMA ground fighting, that should be escapes, that should be positional dominance and ground and pound. Of course, basic submissions as well. Good basic submissions will take you a long way. Just take Roger Gracie, for example. He was at one time he was the best grappler on the planet, and he only did basic techniques, and it really served him well. And I'm not saying don't learn leg locks, don't learn the Danaher systems, please do. But there is so much time during the day that you can invest in training. And if you're a MMA fighter, professional MMA fighter, you should definitely explore leg locks into more detail. But even some of the top level MMA fighters in the UFC, they don't have like very complex leg lock games. And I'll give you an example. It's very similar to kicks. For example, while you should definitely do some kicks, you don't see guys doing flashy kicks so often in MMA. And it's not that they don't work, like spinning back kicks, Ushiro Mawashis and axe kick and stuff like this. They do sometimes work, and I think it's a good idea to learn them, but only if you have your boxing basics down, your basic kicking down. So then you can explore more fancy stuff, as they call it. And then you'll have a great advantage. So let's say some karate guy comes to the UFC or a taekwondo guy, he will have a great advantage with fancy kicks only if he has his basics down. Basic takedown defense, basic boxing, then yes, sure, he will have a great advantage, but not before. I want to mention Georges St-Pierre because he's John Danaher's student and he's one of his best students. But you never saw Georges St-Pierre do leg locks in MMA. Why? It's simple, because he can potentially lose positional dominance if he goes for the leg lock and then he ends up on his back. His opponent maybe gets away from the leg lock and then he has to start all over again. So not good for MMA. And you better believe that Georges St-Pierre has a good leg lock game. After all, he trained with John Danaher, but he chose not to use it because a different skill level was what was needed in MMA. And I'm not saying you cannot use leg locks in MMA. There are examples. For example, Rusimar Palhares. I don't know if you guys remember him. He was a beast Brazilian, he was really a beast, very strong physically, a Brazilian guy that everybody was afraid of. He was second in ADCC and everybody was afraid of him even there too. He leg locked everybody except Andre Galvao in the finals, and he injured a lot of people. He injured people in ADCC, he injured people in training, he injured people in MMA, but he was stopped. And you should watch his fight against Hector Lombard and what's his name, Dan Henderson. Dan Henderson was able to get out of the leg lock. Many people didn't, they got injured, so he made it work. But even him, who was very successful with it, he didn't become the best of the best in MMA because there are other things you need to be working on. You might be the best at leg locks, but then just watch the Hector Lombard fight. He couldn't get past Hector Lombard's striking, so he succumbed to it. Later he lost many fights. He's fighting in smaller organizations right now, but it goes to show you that leg locks can take you, can win fights, but they're not be all end all of MMA. Nothing is. Don't be so hung up on any area of MMA. you have to balance out your game. Otherwise, it's not gonna work. So for most people, I would just stick to the basic leg lock game. Like learn how to do an Achilles hold, a heel hook, a reverse heel hook, a knee bar, a foot lock. Learn how to get away from these, especially in the early stages of it, because the later the stage, the harder it is to get out. And you can also learn how to apply them. So sure, learn it. If you want to specialize even more, if you have a great BJJ basics, ground and pound basics, by all means, go to John Danaher, Craig Jones, Lachlan Giles, many guys now that utilize this new modern system of leg locks. And you can also add some Sambo setups. Sambo setups are great. They start from the feet up. Many of them start from the feet up, and then you go and set up the leg lock. One of the things I think is very underrated in MMA is leg locks from bottom. I think it's a very good idea to learn leg locks from bottom, because once you get up, once somebody takes you down, you're even more dangerous if you can add a leg lock game to your bottom game. So you can have get-ups, sweeps, submissions, not just arm submission and neck submissions. You can also add leg submissions, and many people don't expect you to attack their legs when they're up and you're down. So something to think about. So to sum it up, concentrate on the basics first, something that will bring you the best bang for the buck. Each of us has 24 hours in a day. Many of you guys study and work, many of you just work if you're older. You don't have all the time in the world. You have to prioritize, and if you have a limited amount of time for training, you have to make the best use of it. And how do you do this? You practice what's most important. Good transitional game, boxing to takedowns or kickboxing to takedowns. Good striking game, good basic striking. Good grappling game, like how to submit and get out of submissions and establish positions. Good ground and pound game on top of a good grappling game. That will take you so far. Many careers have been made only by ground and pound, like control and ground and pound. You don't necessarily need leg locks, but I think the more you know, the more dangerous you are. And I always give example of Daniel Cormier and his teammate Cain Velasquez. Both guys were champions. Both guys were beasts. But Cain Velasquez just did not want to submit people. He knew how to submit people. He did BJJ. I think he's even a black belt. But he didn't want to do it in a fight. He just liked punching people out. And it worked for him. In my opinion, Daniel Cormier was more dangerous because from time to time he slipped in a rear naked choke and some other submissions as well. So that made him more dangerous in my mind. But you can just do everything well with ground and pound only. If you'd like me to train you online, where I will correct your technique, give you training plans, and advise you on your MMA journey, check out the link below. What do you think? Should somebody invest heavily into their leg lock game or not? Let me know in the comments below. My name is Mark Leichner from MMAcoach.net, and I will see you again very soon.